Hello and welcome to Raquel Teaches Code. In today's lesson, I'm going to teach you how to add comments to your HTML and CSS code. So let's get started. So here we go back to the Visual Studio Code that I'd worked on before, where I have an HTML file that's also linked to a CSS file here, a very simple one. And so I want to show you first how to add the comments to the documents and also how they are useful. So one of the things about comments that you need to keep in mind is that their use is twofold. One is that it helps you add information to the document that's not viewable by anybody else other than you and maybe another web developer. And that becomes useful because you can leave sort of like a trail or a list of information or hints to help people understand how you coded your document and why, okay? And so first I'm going to show you how to do that so you can see that comments are not visible at all. So when it comes to HTML documents, it's very simple to add a comment. You can go anywhere in the document, and for example, let's say I just want to add a comment about this heading element here. The way you add a comment is with the left bracket, exclamation point, and 2 hyphens, and then a space. Okay, and you'll see here in Visual Studio Code that it adds the ending bracket for the comment, right? And so I can just add my comment in between these opening and closing brackets for the comments. So I can do something like to add a header here, okay? And I can save that. And when I go back to the page and I hit refresh in the browser, you'll notice that you don't see anything, okay? So comments are not seen or displayed by the browser at all. They're not seen by the end user. Comments are strictly for someone who is looking at the code, okay? And when it comes to CSS, we can add code as well, right? So we can go in, for example, here and just add the comments here. Now with CSS, the way you add a comment is with a slash and an asterisk, both to open it and to close it. So you're going to do a slash, asterisk, space, and then asterisk and slash again. And and in between these is where your comments will go, okay? And so I can just add something like, this is my first style sheet. Okay, and I can save those changes. All right, and so once again, when we go back to the browser here and refresh, we'll see that we don't see any change because no change was made to the code. So adding comments helps to keep track of, it's more like providing notes on the code that you've created, right? You can do it for yourself in case you need to remember something for the future, or you can leave notes for someone else that might be maintaining your code at another time. But there's also another use for comments, okay? So when you're debugging code, or sometimes you just want to test something out to see how it will look, you can use comments to be able to mute or deactivate code that you created without having to delete anything. So for example, looking back at our browser here, let's say, for example, I wanted to know what this page would look like without this paragraph. Well, I can do that, right? So let's go back to the code editor here, and I can find the paragraph element, and I can just enclose the paragraph element in a comment tag, right? So I can just add the opening tag up for the comment, then go to the end of this paragraph element and add the closing tag for that comment. And when I save the changes, we'll be able to now see this as a change in the browser. So let's go back to the browser and refresh. And we'll see now that the paragraph is gone, right? So we didn't have to delete it from our code. We just put it within some comment tags. And what it did was essentially deactivate it or mute it so that it's not displayed by the browser. And the same can be done with the style sheet, right? So let's say, for example, looking back at our browser here, let's say we want to know what this header element looks like without the green color that we applied to it, right? Well, we can do that by just adding a comment around the style for the green. So we can go to the beginning of that style for the H1 element, and we can enclose that within comment tags as well for CSS. So remember, it's going to be the slash asterisk, and then we can go to the end of that style and do the same thing again, asterisk slash, right? And we can save those changes. And now when we go back to the browser and refresh, we notice that the heading is still there, but that green color styling is no longer applied. Okay, so comments can be useful in those two ways, both to add notes for yourself or for anyone else that might be maintaining your code, or for deactivating something in your code if you're debugging or just want to do some testing to see what it would look like with some changes without having to change the code. Because sometimes you may decide that you don't like that with the way that it looks, and so if you want to make that element available again, you just remove the comment tags, okay, and you save the changes again, and then that element will be available again, right? So I just saved that. I just made that change and saved it. Now if I go back to the browser and refresh it, that paragraph is back, okay? And the same would apply if I made the change to the CSS style that I put in between comment tags, okay? One last thing to note about comments is that they can be multiple lines long, right? So the way I added this comment here for the header element, I can push that to a different line and the effect is the same, right? And the same thing with CSS. You can make it multiple lines long for a comment, or if you want to enclose multiple things in a comment, you can. So for example, let's say that I want to put the header in a comment as well as that paragraph, right? So I can just move the closing tag for the comment tag and move it to the end of the paragraph, right? And now you'll notice that both of these lines are commented out. That's the typical way to say it. It's been commented out, and you'll also be able to you'll be sure of that because it's in green, and it does the same thing with CSS. Your code editor may have a different color scheme set up for comments, but whatever that is, when you have multiple lines in a comment, all the lines included in that comment will be in the same color, right? So if I add these multiple lines, these multiple elements to a comment, I save the changes and I go and refresh my browser, we'll see that those things are commented out. Okay, so that's how comments work in your HTML and CSS code when you want to leave notes, as well as when you want to use it for debugging or other testing purposes. Hope this was helpful.